Yeah, I think in terms of specs for a mid-tier smartphone, we call it the rise of the good enough phone at IBB Consulting Group. And one of the things we see is that you could run above a 1.5 gigahertz processor. You could have a battery that's as big as 2,500 milliamps, and you could have a camera as much as 10 megapixels. So these specs are rising to a point where it's a very compelling offering for consumers nowadays. When you think about the opportunity, there's kind of two major segments that you can really look at for a mid-tier smartphone. One certainly is kind of emerging markets, where one of the main barriers to entry certainly is the device cost, and you're starting to see in developing countries more and more devices lowering that entry point. Another area is where kind of replacement phones, where you're actually, in the US, we've gotten rid of contracts following the rest of the world, and lowering that monthly subscription cost or that monthly financing cost of the phone down to single digits might be interesting to consumers. Is Samsung missing the market opportunity by not offering a mid-tier phone? I don't think so. A lot of device manufacturers that we've worked with in the past build by platform. So what they'll do is they'll kind of launch the actual high-end first, and then from that software branch off into other devices, and they'll take that same software code and branch it off into lower-end hardware, lower-end software specs. So I don't think so. I think one thing that you do see trend-wise that we're noticing is that you can't just launch one smartphone that is beautifully aesthetically designed with good finishes, really good specs, and be interesting anymore. You have to actually launch a story around that smartphone to be kind of compelling to the users now. No matter how far we take smartphones, it's not as interesting to consumers anymore or the press. What you have to do is kind of launch those companion devices, those friends, those smart accessories around it, so you can really tell a story. If you see what Samsung did, they're giving away the free Gear VR with pre-orders. If you see what LG did 2 days ago, yesterday, they're launching kind of the bot. They're launching the VR headset, and they're also launching a VR camera around it. On top of a really good smartphone, the G5 is modular in design. It has really good features and specs, and it's interesting because you can add on to that smartphone with like a Project Aura type of solution. But even they wanted to build a story around it with smart accessories. Yeah, I think it's interesting. We're giving a talk on VR at this very conference at Mobile World Congress, and one of the things we're going to highlight is actually types of VR devices and what are the segments that you're going to hit with that. So for example, if you look at kind of temporary devices or the cardboard devices that are given away for free, we use those as kind of educational experiences where you hold it up, you temporarily put it down, you discuss, you hold it back up. Then there's kind of this premium segment where, similar to the actual Samsung Gear VR, there's a head strap. You're using the smartphone as computational power, and actually you can have a longer engaged experience. And then there's ultra premium devices where you actually have the computational power sitting in a Sony PlayStation 4, or the computational power sitting in a high-end computer for gaming. I think for the mobile industry, really, what's the definition of VR? And that's what we're trying to work through with a lot of our clients. Some of that is, how do we go beyond just a gaming experience in the home to an educational experience in the classroom to beyond? How do we really take VR mobile, and how do you actually work through that? That's what we're working a lot with our clients on. I think surprisingly, VR really has a lot of opportunity in enterprise. So if you look at kind of the trend of mobility and the trend of wireless, now that there is mass adoption in the consumer market, there's mass adoption in developed countries above 100% penetration rate, now the next great space for carriers, device manufacturers, and the mobile ecosystem is the enterprise market. And VR provides a really good opportunity for that, whether it's in the education space where you find a new way to teach students, or it's almost in the medical space where you're doing lower latency 5G networks with VR, where you can actually do real-time surgeries, to even when you're doing different almost oil and gas use cases where instead of kind of going out to a remote rig, you can actually do that virtually. There's a lot of enterprise opportunities that we see with VR. On the VR panel, we will also be covering, number one, what is the types of content that's going to be out there? Is it going to be strictly professionally generated, that's hosted on a portal that you have to have access to? And that almost becomes the new app store, if you will. If VR is the next computing platform, are these content platforms the next app stores that vie for control? Or we're looking at more user-generated content where you can actually take a Ricoh Theta, or even the product that LG launched yesterday, where you have kind of your own VR experience or spherical content that you take. So content is one, the types of devices we talked about is two, and three, what's the real opportunity for the mobile mobile ecosystem. A lot of people think about VR as just strictly a nomadic device or almost a home device. One, because you have to get past the actual social stigma of wearing something on your head out in public. Two, is there anything beyond gaming in the home? So we're going to figure out how to get past the VR into a mobile environment. I think what's to me interesting is really where mobile has come. This is no longer just a strict wireless show. This is now truly a mobile show. And as mobile infuses its way into everything, that's the most interesting to me. You're starting to see shows where, or stands where you're seeing a lot of robots. You're starting to see artificial intelligence into those robots. And a lot of buzzwords that come out are coming to fruition. For me, we talked a lot about IoT 2 to 3 years ago, but a lot of people didn't understand what IoT meant. For us at IBB Consulting, what we think about IoT is IoT creates sensors to enable data, to enable analytics so that you can get to artificial intelligence, which provides contextual awareness. So a lot of times they would take kind of what does contextual awareness mean and what does IoT mean, but not describe the middle and what does all that mean. And for us, that's interesting.